serial marketplace entrepreneur, so Drove is my third sort of marketplace company that I started. I'm from Germany, but actually have been spending the last 10 years of my life in the UK. And kind of went to a small German business school in the middle of nowhere, close to Koblenz, and basically right afterwards started my first company, a marketplace business in the gaming space. Today with, like, say, an early version of a cryptocurrency marketplace. So we basically sold through a marketplace concept, digital currency to gamers through a kind of a B2C model. That was marketplace experience number one. I then moved to London and started a fashion e-commerce company with a subscription element that kind of heavily used celebrities as social media endorsers. Before that was really a thing, kind of around 2010, 11. And the business started out as a stockholding business, but became a marketplace very quickly. So that was business number two. And I'm currently running Drover or have been for the last almost 4 years, which is a marketplace in the auto space. And just quickly about us, so we're Europe's largest car subscription company, and I'll tell you in a second what that actually is. We're 120 people spread across offices in London and Lisbon, and have a few users and raised a little bit of money. So quick disclosure, a lot of my slides I'm going to show you are not mine, they're from the internet, so I kind of borrowed some of them. So what is a marketplace? So, I mean, pretty simply put, it's kind of a product where you connect buyers and sellers, either kind of with products or for services or a combination of both. Pretty simple. So in the last kind of 15 years or so, essentially things have kind of started with, typically in most markets, with like a big general classified side, and then we had and we still have a massive trend of verticalization. So probably this slide was in most of the presentations today. So I think that's been a general trend where essentially you have basically taken verticals out, and currently you see verticals being taken out of verticals, and you see even more specific sites being created to essentially create bespoke, specific marketplaces in a B2C, C2C, or B2B context for tons of different verticals. So that has been a big story. And essentially what has happened in the last couple of years is that basically a new category of marketplaces has been emerging, which are managed marketplaces. Because essentially, if you take the basic sort of classifieds type marketplace model, you're pretty removed from the transaction, and essentially a trend has been to go much deeper into the value chain, and with that actually create marketplaces that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. So you basically create whole new verticals that you can serve, which essentially from the more kind of classifieds type play that wasn't possible. So one example is someone like Uber, who essentially controls the transaction and the payment flow, but also, for example, sets prices and moderates quality. And currently, where I think my company falls under, you have fully managed marketplaces that go even a step further, where you add things like logistics or essentially the marketplace picking the seller or the supplier, not the customer. So essentially you move much deeper into the value chain to a level that actually the customer may not even perceive you as a marketplace at all. They just think of you as getting a service from. And sort of the 4 basic categories in how you can manage a marketplace. So essentially, standardized pricing is a big one. So I mentioned Uber. That's kind of a prime example where essentially you step in, you moderate pricing so that buyers and sellers are kind of, you kind of level the playing field, and that provides for many verticals a much better user experience. Market making, meaning you actually yourself take a position in your own marketplace, typically to generate or supply kind of enough liquidity. So that's something the peer-to-peer lending platforms do a lot. They typically have sort of own or controlled vehicles that they make sure kind of the debt on their platforms is being serviced and sort of nothing gets left out. You can do quality guarantees beyond just standard ratings. So a big example here are, for example, some of the luxury watch marketplaces or luxury commerce marketplaces where essentially you control kind of the quality, you authenticate products and make sure nobody is kind of defrauding each other. And a big piece in the last couple of years have been logistics, and Deliveroo or kind of food delivery has been a prime example where basically the Just Eat model started with aggregating restaurants that already do delivery, but that's obviously only so large. And what has happened is that you basically then, by doing the logistics yourselves, you can suddenly sign up all the restaurants that don't do their own delivery. So that created a whole new market. And sort of, it's a bit of a blurry line at times, but there are obviously a lot of companies who kind of step above the line, across the line, and essentially I think you're really not a marketplace anymore. By the time you take on significant inventory risk, then you're just the seller, it's only you. That's not a marketplace. So that's, I think, where probably we should draw the line in terms of that definition. So now, why build a marketplace in cars? So cars, very interestingly, is one of the biggest markets there is. So basically, at a national level, you can go look at Germany, France, UK, many others. You typically get to the hundreds of billions in market size per annum. Millions of cars are being sold every year. To give you kind of the UK examples, which are pretty representative for most of the other Western European markets, you've got about 2 to 3 million new cars being sold every year, 7 to 8 million used. So any way you slice or dice is a massive market. And cars as a household spending category typically ranks among the top 3 spending categories. So in terms of disposable income, it's a huge part of where money goes. And actually, as a retail category, whereas broadly 20% of all retail now happens online, in cars it's less than 1%, and actually it's a pretty terrible user experience, as I'll show you in a second. So really, for some reason, in cars, like, digital innovation hasn't really happened yet. So the distribution model, kind of how cars are being bought and sold, has really not changed in decades. So the advertising model has moved online. I go to Auto Trader or mobile.de or CarWow, and I kind of the lead is referred to the physical retailer in different ways than previously. But other than that, it becomes essentially an offline transaction. But of course, kind of the digital revolution happened, which has enabled so many like new, amazing mobility categories, where I think customers these days have a certain expectation for like an elegance of a user experience that, you know, all these fantastic new micro-mobility categories have created, but that has not translated through to the car world. So when you go buy a car and you do what most people do, you would typically get a used one that's almost 7 to 1 in kind of size in volume terms. You would typically start at a classified side. You would kind of broadly have an idea in mind what you want. You would go compare prices, find retailers in your area at car dealerships. Then you'll go and meet that guy. And nobody enjoys that. Complete sort of, he does that every day, you never, so get who gets the deal. Then you will negotiate on price, probably visit a couple dealers, spend hours doing that. And if you do, again, what most people do, you would buy the car in finance, and that typically is a not well integrated separate user journey, involves a ton of paperwork, so you're going to apply for finance. That involves sending in bank statements, stuff like that. It takes about 2 weeks on average to arrange. You may get declined, pass from one to the next. So that's the next part in the journey. Then you own the car, but you still can't drive it because you need insurance. So you go on a price comparison side, kind of do all that stuff, get your car insurance. So then you can drive it, and you probably feel like that. Takes people on average about 3 months to complete their journey. But then you own the car, right? So you have the entire maintenance risk. You don't really know what you're buying. There's very little warranty. Sort of the statutory warranty is very little. So you don't know what the car is going to be worth in the end, if anything. So it's all on you. You have all that risk. And by the time you sell it, you've got very big, very successful companies, We Buy Any Car, Auto1, who profit on the back end from the fact that retail values are a lot kind of higher than trade-in values. So a totally broken user experience and essentially zero NPS. So people hate it. So at the same time, you got a new generation of buyers coming to market, which enjoys basically through every aspect of their lives. Their lives has been digitalized basically category by category. They used to new type of user experiences which don't exist yet in the car world, and that's a hugely challenging situation for a lot of the incumbents, because again, this new demographic that's now coming into markets that are the buyers of the future, the current model just doesn't speak to them really well. The average car buyer in markets like Germany, UK, France, on the new car side is typically actually someone in their late 50s and typically male. On the used car side, around 50. So basically, the classic car distribution model isn't reaching the next generation of buyers really well. And this generation doesn't care about ownership the slightest. People want to pay per month. They care about sort of the price they're paying, the product they're getting, the service they're getting, but ownership really does not come into play. So the data on that is pretty conclusive. So people spend hours and hours online researching, so only travel is really kind of the next comparison. Hours at dealerships, traveling there. If you stop people on the street, 80% will say they'll never voluntarily set foot in a car dealership. Owning is time complex and time consuming, and in the end, we've been through it, you lose a lot of value again. So totally broken, fragmented user experience. So what we kind of did when we started Drova 4 years ago, it was really about how can we rethink that? How can we create a user experience essentially that is contemporary, that is really how it should be? And this is what we came up with. So we created a model that is, first of all inclusive. So basically, as we've been through, you need all these different components to drive the car. So why not include them? You got to buy them anyway. So we include everything in one single checkout experience. We allow the user to get a car on their terms, meaning from a 1 month subscription, you can cancel anytime, up to a 2-year agreement, and everything in the middle. You can get, again, the car on your terms how you want it. You're not stuck with sort of the 3-year leasing term or the 5-year car loan. You can really choose what fits your lifestyle. And that's the last piece is most important. It's a fully digital user experience. So essentially, we're turning that weird outlier offline experience that people still do in person in 2019 into just a general, normal, everyday online transaction. So in the same way, with the same elegance that you can shop on Amazon, you can now shop for a car. And so we built this business taking very much the view that we, I think, have no USPs over the big incumbents in terms of how to buy cars. When you do that, you really kind of the only differentiators are through scale, purchasing power, size of your balance sheet, access to kind of very low interest. So, you know, as a new entrant that maybe has a USP around kind of how to acquire customer and the digital strategy, we thought we kind of want to build this as a marketplace business, asset light, and very much in line in terms of you know, the different parameters of what a managed marketplace is. We really apply all of them. So we obviously provide the kind of transactional interface. We do things like insurance, which is kind of its very own business almost. We actually make sure we get the right customers and decline the bad customers. We have the whole kind of back-end software that we provide to our partners on the supply side of our business. We acquire customers. We make sure they're well served through customer service, and a big logistics component is part of it as well. So that has enabled us to kind of be embraced by the industry and partner with a lot of the incumbents, which includes most of the big OEMs today. It includes big leasing companies like LeasePlan. It includes big dealer networks, and includes most of the big rental car companies. And that has allowed us basically by actually you know, doing the heavy lifting and all the manual parts of this business, to essentially find a way that we can leverage those guys' size, monetize their assets extremely profitably through our marketplace, but has allowed us not to basically take on any asset risk ourselves, but really focus on what I think a tech company is good at. So building a highly converting funnel, acquiring customers at a good customer acquisition cost, and you know, monetizing them through our lifetime and really servicing them through the tech that we have built. So with that, we created a totally new ownership model, and that simply makes getting a car easy. That turns it into an everyday transaction away from this outlier experience that it has been so far. So basically, by doing that, if you get it right, you can achieve quick growth because, again, you don't need to finance your inventory. That's the beauty of any marketplace business. You grow through the power of your sellers, and that has allowed us, at least in the past, to now really start kind of to scale our business up without carrying any inventory risk whatsoever. And kind of indirectly, we would have raised probably about $100 million so far just to put on cars, and we didn't need to do any of that because we work with marketplace sellers to do that for us. And, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs here. So, you know, being a startup is always feels a bit like that, the kind of David and Goliath battle. And I think as you move into kind of see managed marketplaces as an opportunity, there's typically an incumbent sort of vertical marketplace you're trying to compete with. So really what you got to do is adapt the way you play. And that you can do by adding these value-added services that we've been through, which allow you really to create, play a different game. And so you can really compete differently, and that allows you in the end, through managing the whole experience, to differentiate the user experience, the service you're offering, maybe create a whole new vertical, and that allows you in the end to beat the incumbent, or at least have a chance. And again, from the outside, always looks easy. It really isn't like that, as all the entrepreneurs here know. So success is never a straight line in that, but just remember that guy did it too. Within just 20 years, he managed to create $1 trillion company. So, and he also started in a niche. He started kind of moving out from there, vertical by vertical, so it is possible. So with that, I'll leave you to it. So we're very actively hiring in case you're interested in joining us. Other than that, thank you very much.